Hi, I'm Whitney Smith, and we are going to go ahead and discuss the training syllabus for security guards here in Ontario and what that looks like, and really practically break it down using the Ontario government's website, because ultimately we are licensed through the provincial government in the Ministry of Solicitor General. So we want to just go through the training syllabus. We get a lot of questions, when it comes to the courses that we offer. What is it going to talk about? What can I expect? So, we really want to help you understand as the potential learner and someone who's looking to get licensed, what our course is about, and give you as much information as possible. So here we go. So you can find all of the information that we're going through. This is just on the ontario.ca training syllabus for security guards. So you can find any of this yourself and look through it. The ministry is about to they're in the middle of an update to the PSISA, or they're potentially the update to the PSISA. So this information is being filmed March 2026. This is subject to change because we don't know what the new PSISA requirements or legislation, any changes to the act, we don't know what that is just yet. So stay tuned, because ultimately we're going to have some more information, hopefully in the coming months, of what potential changes we'll see. But as of now, March 2026, this is their information. So the training content. The security course is a 40-hour course. So as you can see here, no less than 40 hours with emergency level first aid included, or no less than 33 and a half hours. Let's say you were doing a volunteer position and you already have your CPR certification and it's valid, let's say, for 2 more years. Then you don't need to take that as part of the 40 hours. You only need to take no less than 33 and a half hours. So let your provider know beforehand if, depending on what their platform looks like. Ours is timed modules. That's one of the ways somebody is a compliant training provider. So ultimately, ours is going to automatically stop. And the second part is either you provide us your certification and we know that you've completed those additional hours, or you're going to go to our CPR first aid providers and they're going to give you that. Basically, that is the nutshell of the 40 hours with or without the certification. So then we're going to go outside this part here. So I'm going to kind of highlight this so you can see where I'm coming along. So the following table suggests the duration for each training section and includes both in-class and outside class hours. Outside class hours refer to pre-reading only. All of the training methods must take place in class or online. These hours are estimates, and may need to be adjusted based on student learning abilities and trainer preference. The trainer must determine the optimal number of hours for each section of his or her program design, but the total must be no less than 40 hours. So again, our platform, for instance, we know that everybody learns differently. So we don't have this expectation that we just throw content at you and we hope that everybody gets a 100%, because we all learn differently. So ultimately, we have where you can read the content, you can have narration that reads it to you, and then you can read along. And then we have instructor-led recap videos at the end of each lesson. So it really just helps with optimal retention. So ultimately, we want to make sure that you have the best retention of the material as possible. And now we'll go through the content here so you can kind of see. So here's the training content and suggested duration. So in section 1 of the security guard course, it's the introduction to the security industry. So here we're really explaining the role of private security, the types of work professionals perform, and the expectations placed on individuals working in the field. So you're ultimately, as a licensed security guard, you're expected to be able to perform duties, whatever that is. So that could be loss prevention, that could be, mobile patrols, that could be, several different things. You might just be sitting in construction sites. You might be at retail, malls, whatever that situation might be. It really just is going to give you that overview of what the industry is. Then we have section 2, which is the Private Security and Investigative Services Act, what we call PSISA, or some people call it PSISA. It really just depends. Everybody's going to kind of give it different. So this is really going to focus on the legislation that regulates security guards and private investigators in Ontario, including those license requirements and, of course, professional standards. Then we have, I'll highlight this for you guys so you can see it. So then we have the section 3 is your basic security procedures. So this covers the day-to-day responsibility of security guards, like patrols, site monitoring, observing suspicious activity, and responding to incidents. Then we have report writing. Security guards must accurately document incidents and observations. This section focuses on how to prepare professional reports and incident documentation. And this is one of those really, really key parts. Obviously, all of this is going to be important and helpful for you in your career, but report writing is going to be massive because you might find yourself in situations, especially if you ever have to use force, if you ever have to make an arrest. You're going to need solid documentation to back up the steps that you made, the things that you did, and to document things properly, especially if there's any insurance issues, things like that. So report writing is very, very important, and you want to make sure you really pay attention in that section. Then, of course, we have health and safety. In this section, it's going to introduce workplace safety principles, hazard recognition, and responsibilities under Ontario health and safety legislation. So again, equally important, though some people might not see this, it's only an hour duration. Some people don't see this as important, but, different sites are going to vary. If you're working on let's say you're at a construction site and you're sitting in a vehicle all night and you're just making sure no one hops a fence and steals, let's say, 2x4s or, some other sort of building materials. You're not going to be as concerned on a health and safety perspective if you're not going anywhere and you're not really doing any patrols. You're just sitting there watching versus somebody who maybe works at, let's say you work at a pharmaceutical company and part of your patrol is going to be walking throughout that pharmaceutical company. And maybe you're going by labs and you're going where they have chemicals stored. Then that's obviously going to be a big deal because if you're walking through a certain area and you see something spilt on the floor, well, you're not going to go walk by and touch it with your finger and smell it. That could be a very dangerous chemical. So that for some more than others is going to be a very key area. And, if you, for instance, do get hired on to a company that you're working in one of those types of areas, I would revisit this. And then I would ask them to give you additional training even on that site, because that's going to be really, really important to make sure that you're safe and the other individuals are safe around you. Then, of course, we have the emergency response preparation. Security professionals, you need to know how to respond to emergencies like fires, evacuations, alarms, medical incidents. We see a big one at Smith Security at my company. We deal a lot of structure fires. We deal with, buildings that collapse, whether that's from, snow loads or something happening. So, right now, for instance, we have guards that are out on a site and they need to keep it safe. This building basically imploded. The snow load was a little too heavy on it. And that can be extremely dangerous if you have people, whether they're just visitors driving by and they see it and they want to go take pictures, or maybe they want to go steal some items inside that building. You need to make sure that, you're monitoring everything, and no matter what the emergency is. But of course, fires, all of that, you need to be able to be a clear, calm professional and help people understand what to do, where to go, and when to do it. So a very, very key and important part. And you can see that obviously because it's 4 hours. It's a bigger site. So you can see, or not a bigger site, sorry, bigger section. So you can see obviously somewhat the level of importance based on the amount of hours that you're going to spend in each section. So then the next one, we have the Canadian legal system. This includes the structure of Canada's legal system and explains how criminal law and civil law can relate to the work of security professionals. So also a very, very important one because if you see news online, you're seeing, situations where people are getting into physical altercations with guards, and you need to know the legal laws of what you are and are not allowed to do. So that kind of introduces you to the next one, which is legal authorities. And see this is 7.5 hours here of, that in-class time, whether it's in class or online. That's a lot. That's substantial because here you're dealing with, one of the most important areas of training. It explains the legal powers and limitations of security guards, including topics like citizens arrest and trespassing laws. So if you work in a retail store and you're ultimately looking to arrest somebody for, trespassing, let's say they've stolen there before and you've trespassed them. Well, you need to know, for one, how you can trespass somebody legally. What have they done wrong that they're being trespassed for? And then how do you continue to enforce that? So very, very important. Another one here, obviously very important, effective communications. So security guards must communicate clearly and professionally with the public. This can't be overstressed. You got to talk to public, coworkers, emergency responders. And this section really focuses on that skills and conflict resolution. You don't know what you're going to face when you go onto a site that day. And you also want to make sure that you have effective communication with your team because We could have a site that we have a guard on, and maybe there's an issue at night, and the guard didn't explain it properly of what took place that night before. And then you go and you show up for your shift and find out that somebody's in a very dangerous mental state, or maybe some physical altercations and violence took place the night before. And you're showing up for your shift and you're just having a good old day and you don't realize anything happened. And if things weren't communicated properly, whether it was through coworkers, whether it was through different people around, you could find yourself in a dangerous situation. So communication is absolutely key in this industry. Then, of course, we have sensitivity training. So security professionals, you're going to interact with individuals from diverse backgrounds. And this section is going to focus on professionalism, cultural awareness, and respect for public interaction. I would say that even the industry itself is more diverse now than it's ever been. I've been in the industry 20 years, and it has certainly shifted over the years, where even, now in 2026, we're seeing a lot of security guards that are, newcomers to Canada, and that's amazing. And we love to see, people coming here and joining the industry. But, we also find that people can be disrespectful to security guards too. So not only is the sensitivity training going to help, in terms of, dealing with people and being professional, that's not just you to the client. That's maybe them doing something rude to you. So it's really just going to help you balance that as much as possible. Another key one here is the use of force theory. Now, this is just theory. This is not use of force training, which is a hands-on and a different training. So ultimately, the use of force theory is going to explain when force may be justified and the principles behind appropriate and proportional response. So, if you're in, let's say, a retail setting, and somebody has stolen something, and they, are being compliant, and, they're wanting to give the object back, whatever they've taken or allegedly taken. And then you grab them and you throw them to the ground, and, you start to handcuff them. There was a gentleman, actually, I think a couple weeks ago, I think it was in, I want to say BC, or it could have been Alberta. And the security guard, I think it was like a Dollarama or something. You can Google it. He basically took this guy down, and he used brass knuckles, which that's not even allowed, period. So that guy got charged. So you need to know, when it comes to use of force, the theory side of what you can do. And then, of course, if you're going to be carrying a baton, handcuffs, duty belt, all of that, then you need to take the use of force training, which is different. But the use of force theory at least gives you that. It also teaches you really important de-escalation techniques, which ideally you should never have to lay your hands on somebody, because you should be able to very clearly have conversations with people and in a polite way de-escalate the situation and de-escalate the person, instead of, being accusatory and, big in posture and, trying to start a fight with them. That's not going to benefit anybody. And then, of course, we have the emergency level first aid. So again, security guards have to obtain that emergency level first aid certification so you can respond to medical emergencies until trained medical professionals arrive, which you don't know. You could be, depending on the site that you work on, you might not see anybody, come to that site for hours. You could be in a very rural area. So ultimately, you need to know how to protect the people on the site where you're working. Then we have this section on the working and detailed knowledge. So each section identifies whether the student needs to have working knowledge or detailed knowledge of the training material. So, the benefit here, and I'll just go through this a little bit quicker. Our course, for instance, again, we're going to have that content that's given to you. You can also use the narration, but there's also recap videos that are instructor-led. So that's really going to help you understand the detailed knowledge versus the working knowledge, right? So not all courses are built the same. So you do want to work with a provider that's going to be able to make sure that you fully comprehend and you really understand the industry that you're about to work on. So training methodology. You're going to have that learning journal, which really is just essentially your notebook. It's where you're going to put your thoughts, your insights as you're going through the course, and then following any requirements, of course, where the instructor is going to say, put this in your learning journal. You're going to have your pre-reading assignments. This is key. If you just go into, let's say, like the law portion, and you don't really understand the laws and you don't really have any concept of what it is, it might just kind of go over your head. And then that could be challenging for you when it comes to the exam, because you don't really understand it. So the pre-reading assignments are really going to help you have a better grip and grasp of the information that you're learning. So don't just breeze through that, because that's not going to help you. And we find people that maybe don't find the exam very successful, whether they've done it with us or somebody else. That becomes a big issue, is that they really just breeze through a lot of it instead of taking the time to really understand it. And then, of course, the training evaluation, the majority of content in the security guard program is focused on the application of learned knowledge, and it's recommended that training evaluation include knowledge-based tests, which they should. Ours do, so that's no issue. The instructor-student ratio. Now, we get a lot of questions because they don't talk about, well, here they do a little bit, the web-based. They always used to just focus, obviously, on in-person. And then as, life, especially post-COVID, has become very online heavy, they obviously, a lot more providers are focusing on that online because learners ultimately find that easier. And it's less cost on you because, for instance, if I have you take the private investigator course, let's say, or let's say the security guard course, it's that 40-hour course. Ultimately, it's $99. If I have you come into our training facility here, ultimately that could cost you around $700 because it's just more money for us to be here dedicating, an instructor for you, where most people just want to do that online. So you definitely want to keep in mind there are instructors that are going to do in class if that's what you prefer. But you might end up finding that it's going to be a lot more money than just doing it online. And ultimately, you can do either. So there we go. That goes through the training syllabus for security guards. Thanks for watching.